Yay.
I'll just say that I'm like a nursing, like I lost my voice while I was with my family because they speak in like volume 100. And
I
I was
know
like,
the
wow,
feeling.
I'm like, I'm projecting a lot this week. So yeah, yes, I'm here, I'm in conversation, but I'll type when I need to. Thank you both.
No
Great.
problem. Yeah. All right. So we'll just do a little introduction. I think you know Kim and I, but we'll do our little spiel, but happy to just to kind of say name, connection to the arts, and maybe an issue or two that you're seeing in your work or practice these days. Kim, you want to go ahead and start us out?
Sure, I'm Kim. I'm an artist, but also have been an art administrator for over 17 years. And one of the biggest things that I'm seeing in my work is, well, this splits off into two. Like, one is like capacity, like sustainability, anti-burnout practices. That's a big topic. And then second one is the kind of fallouts of hierarchical leadership. So when there is like one central executive director, and then how the lack of delegation or decentralizing leadership causes bottlenecks and also mistrust with staff and artists that they serve. Yeah.
Amy, you want to go next?
You can go ahead. It's nice to hear from you both and get oriented.
All right, yeah. So Melody Hernandez, I am a consultant that works with nonprofits, many of whom are art focused nonprofits. I mainly do grant work. I also do strategy work, and other fund development work, some little individual donor stuff and other things. But the bulk of what I do is help folks secure grant funding for their programming. I also do some photography. This is mine right there. And yeah, and just am a huge supporter of the arts in a lot of ways. Um, I think, you know, as far as issues that I'm seeing, having a grant focus, just the issue that I'm seeing is a lot of disappearing revenue streams that are destabilizing arts orgs and just, you know, really kind of increasing feelings of uncertainty. And, you know, I feel like for several years, we were really trying to build up this kind of like abundance mindset. And it's really hard to do when a lot of the funding streams have disappeared. And then you kind of get into scarcity mindset, and then people go into panic mode and people try to hoard resources and no longer look at each other as collaborators, but instead look at each other as competition. And I think it just kind of has this like domino effect throughout the sector.
Those are two real situations. Um, I'll go. And Ayla, if you're able to share in the chat, I'd love to know who you are too. Um, the I have been a arts and culture consultant, an arts ed consultant for the past 8 years, working for myself and working in community with school districts, cultural institutions, big and small, foundations, large foundations, small foundations, and also individual artists and like collectives. So it's been really great to be in purpose. And I've gotten to collaborate with Kim in various ways that are in alignment. Um, and yeah, that's the gist of that. I'll say the big and present issue I'm seeing is that with the cuts is also the cuts to like DEI efforts. And it's not like racism has gone away, or it's not like white people figured out how to be um, better allies to BIPOC artists and arts admin in between now and funding getting cut. And so now when I am working with BIPOC folks who are seeking resources or seeking support, it's really painful or hard to see us being like, again, as a queer person, it's kind of like triggering. It's like they're having to be closeted or about like, and not explicit about how to get resource to support them when it's like it's what it is. It's like I need support as a BIPOC artist, for example, to navigate a white, predominantly white institution. And so if those resources and um, specific funds towards that aren't readily available, it kind of is demoralizing for both like white allies who want to do the work and BIPOC folks who are trying to thrive versus survive. And when you don't name what it is, it just, I don't know, I'm just quite triggered by it. It's like really hard. Um, and when we see these lists of words that art institutions or institutions paid for or supported by the federal government in some way, and they're not able to use those words, how do we create and challenge work when folks are really feeling stifled and closeted in different ways? So that's the best way that I can articulate it right now. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Most definitely a big issue. And also, I think in terms of like the influx of equity-minded programs that came through in 2020, like seeing a lot of them getting wiped out, even more so under this administration. So
I feel like art can be and is, right, such a great way to convey these very strong feelings. And especially uh I feel like the um the emotions that art can tap into, as as far as connection and understanding and everything, I feel like does, for me at least, provide, some kind of like a kind of holds the overwhelm at bay, right? Because I think we have seen a lot of really powerful arts imagery and stories being told through the arts that are able to, you know, keeping us from descending fully into fascism, right? Like it kind of helps hold the line, right?
and I will say though, everyone is struggling and the mindsets are shifting a lot, it hasn't made the art stop happening.
Yeah.
Like even we were just talking about how incredibly packed YBCA was last
Yeah.
Friday, and especially for YBCA as an organization that, or not organization, but institution that very visibly was grappling with its values in those ways. And for such a beautiful gathering of community and overwhelmed, like people were in line and were turned away at the door last Friday. So it hasn't stopped the art from happening. And so, there are nuggets of optimism through all of that.
Yeah, and I think not only has it not stopped the art from happening, I think it makes people yearn for, art that is authentic and real. And, I think same thing about AI, all this AI, crap that's coming out. It's like it makes you want to go and connect with something real and human.
And
So,
to go to these things with other humans.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for that update. I'm so glad.
yeah.
Think I saw a couple pictures, but yeah, congrats.
Yeah,
When did you?
Melody couldn't get
I
in.
couldn't get in. I didn't get a ticket and I waited in line and then I get there and they said, "No, we can't let you in without
Wow,
a
at
ticket."
YBCA no less.
Yeah.
Like, what did you end up showing, Kim?
A photograph of archipelago books of Golda and Lily, and then two posters from the Market Street
Oh,
posters on Manila Town. It's a really beautiful exhibit. Go see it when you get a chance.
yay.
I know, and I should say that the photography, the limited amount of photography in this very, not really even slideshow presentation is mine. And I don't know why my photos are in there, Kim, and not yours, but
Well, it's funny. I think a lot of people were like, oh, like I had another colleague that was like, oh, I don't know what is in there of mine, but I'm in there apparently.
Yeah, there's a lot
really,
of documentation and ephemera just like from throughout all of time forever. So it's
oh,
really
that's so
beautiful.
cool though.
Who
Yeah.
ended up curating it again? Is it
Trisha
yeah,
Lagassa Goldberg, yeah.
cool?
In tandem with Raquel and Christine Abiba.
Oh, dope.
And
Yeah.
I do have to say, at least I was able to look through the window as I was waiting in line and see, see some of it.
Nice.
But all
Cool.
right, so this is not a formal presentation or anything, but we did have a, just sometimes it's easier to have the written word for, because folks did submit questions that they wanted us to go over. And so it's easier to kind of have it where we can all look at it and bring us back to what were we answering again? What were we thinking about? And, just some general community agreements here. Um, and I'm happy to add any other ones if anyone has anything else that they want to add to this, but just kind of reminding us that together we know a lot, alone we don't know it all. And to take space, make space. So, in other words, share your thoughts. We're here to share. We're not here to talk at people. And then also, I'm somebody that has to remind myself to make space because I will just talk for an hour. And, Ayla, if there's any point that you can come and take space and contribute, you're welcome to. But I know she just got one of those big shipping pods delivered to her brand new apartment. So she is like very busy unpacking a giant shipping pod. So her hands are full, but she's got us in her earbuds and is listening as she unpacks. Be curious and respectful. Lean into discomfort. It's how we grow. What we learn leaves here. What we say stays here. So, take the perspectives and things that are shared, take the messaging of it, but not folks' individual stories, just out of respect for confidentiality and privacy, and respect different perspectives and experiences. Any other ones that anybody wants to add?
These are great.
All right. Okay, so these are some of the questions that we had submitted that folks kind of wanted us to talk about a little bit. So starting with the first one, what are the priorities that organizations must consider when engaging strategic planning at this rapidly changing time?
Um, are we just going at this?
Ah.
Yeah,
One of the
that's
things,
my question. Thank
Oh,
you.
oh,
are we
okay,
starting with your question? Oh,
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
lucky.
Did you have any context that you wanted to share around it, or is it just a general question?
Let's start general and then I
Okay.
can have some follow-ups.
I mean, so one of the things that I'm always going to remind folks is to make sure that your mission, vision, your theory of change is super, super aligned, because I think what happens when folks are strapped for money, we start taking opportunities that kind of push us away from our opportunity, from our mission and vision, right? Like that also start to push us away from our values, right? So even thinking about like, where is this money coming from? And I think there's been a lot of amazing success and examples over the years of organizations who have decided to move 100% away from government funding. So, for example, Lavender Phoenix is they are supported by some specific foundations, but they get $0 in government funding. So, like really thinking about like how does the funding align and like speak to the values of the organization, right? And for an organization like Lavender Felix, it makes a lot of sense. um, I have also seen a lot of organizations that have, you know, upped their rental strategies, right? Their rental programs, and then that pushes them away from having more opportunities for artists to use their space, right? So one of the things that I will always, recommend to folks is like, what are the triggers that kind of like push us outside of our regular, like, what are the checks and balances that like are going to make sure that we're diversifying our income when needed, but also staying true to providing towards the mission and vision in the programs that we're providing to the community. And so that's like the first thing that I would respond with. Melody, would love to like tag team you if you have any responses here before I start yapping.
Yeah. I think for me, as the grant consultant, it's maybe not what folks would expect me to say, but really strategic planning isn't just about money, right? And money is one piece of it. Money is a tool to use to um further your mission and reach your goals, right? But it's not the only tool. And sometimes folks are too focused on the dollars and not recognizing that it's about mission impact. It's not always just about getting more and more dollars or trying to at this point, I don't know if many folks are trying to get more dollars, but even if you're looking to sustain the funding that you have, is that always the best way to have mission impact? um so for example, and similar to what Kim's talking about, you start to get mission creep, and that you kind of end up leaving your lane and not reaching the goals that you're trying to reach, because you're, shifting your programming to focus on something to get dollars. You're probably not going to do it well. And that doesn't always often even alleviate the financial constraints that you have around, trying to further your mission. So I think right now, strategic planning, my opinion, first and foremost, needs to start with a reminder of what is your mission, vision, values, all that good stuff, and what is your core mission? What is your mission critical programming? And to really focus on that and to think about if there are certain things programs that have you been doing, even if they've been really effective, if they're not necessarily mission critical, there are creative ways that you can perhaps transfer that program to a different organization or support that program in continuing, even if it's not continuing to be a part of something that you further, right? And that can be a way, we don't want to leave like holes with our programming, and nobody really wants to like fire people and all that good stuff, right? But I think that there are ways to kind of think through, perhaps you were doing programming, especially in the last 5 years. A lot of folks started doing programming because there was extra money flowing around, kind of from 2018 till 2023 in San Francisco, especially in the Bay Area. Money was flowing and folks started, kind of starting new programs that maybe aren't mission critical, and there maybe are ways to um they serve their purpose, they had their time, and you don't need to keep them going, or again to kind of figure out an exit strategy for that if it's not mission critical. So I think first, the strategic planning should not happen in a silo. It should be the key folks that need to be a part of that conversation, staff, board, whomever, is on that list, community, all that good stuff. And, folks need to kind of sit down and really kind of double down on what their mission is and stay focused on that. And then once these are the core mission programmings, what resources do you need? And it's not always money. It can be, resources are time, energy, money, and also
People.
space, people,
Yeah.
right? These kind of things. Can you get volunteer hours? Can you share space? Can you get an in-kind donation of, materials, whatever it is? It doesn't always have to be money. And sometimes you work really hard to get $50,000 that, or let's say $10,000 and somebody to pay for somebody's time when they would have happily donated that time in a much shorter, with a lot less effort and in a shorter window, right? So different things like that to kind of think through. I'm a huge proponent of paying people and paying people well, but there's also times that folks do show up and do the work that needs to be done, and And again, if they, you can be creative about that. Sharing resources, looking at folks in this community as collaborators and community and not competition. Competition is exhausting and it wastes a lot of our resources to fight each other. So I think that's huge too, is how can we move, still kind of stave off that scarcity mindset that kind of gets folks to waste a lot of energy. And then also we are going to go through kind of like a checklist that you can do that's really going to help it, kind of frame some of this like it's not just money, right? It is there's other things to think through about this. And those things haven't changed during this time. I think when times are good, sometimes the strategy is maybe less important, right? And so, this is a reminder that we do need to be strategic in how we invest our time and effort. And there is, all those same core areas are still the same core areas that we do, even when times are a little, more tenuous and even more so during these times.
My response also is gonna address the second question that's on there is like, does it make sense to create a 5-year strategic plan right now? I like if we think about what has happened in the last year, like last 5 years, going from 2020 to 2021 to like every year has been literally so different. And so I think what is more important now is to be really like thinking about scenarios as opposed to like a 5-year stretch when it comes to the strategic planning, right? Like I think also, where we're starting to like deviate a bit from like the tradition of having like a 5-year, 10-year, 15-year strategic plan for nonprofit organizations and then sticking to it as a document, because as we've seen, the world has changed, like flipped completely upside down in the last 5 years from where we knew it, even in like 2019 to 2020, right? So the strategies are really going to be about being like having intentional time for reflection of like we actually moving the needle on where our previous strategic plan was and where do we need to adjust it, and being really thoughtful about the different scenarios of like climate events, political shifts, economic instability. These are all different kinds of scenarios that we need to think about and um, have some thought put around it that aren't just like, okay, we're going to stick to this and in 5 years it'll be completely the same. We're not like in those times anymore, right? And so like my in the work that I've been doing, we've been thinking more about like 12-month, 18-month engagements, and then like having really clear reflective or a data collection processes to be able to monitor how we're doing with these things. And so like I think 5-year strategic plan, like if you want to get into that, I would think about broad strokes and thinking about like more with like stakeholder engagement, board, things that would be more steady as opposed to maybe being so rigid about like a funding plan and this kind of stuff. Because some of those things, like, yes, while they will be like helpful guideposts, I don't think it's completely smart to be like super rigid about specific things right now, because as we've seen, like even individual donations, like those have gone up and it's gone completely down within the last like 3 or 4 years. So I think scenario planning for all of these different things is going to be really important to think about, and just being nimble and adaptive rather than sticking to like rigid 5-year plans like we were kind of traditionally taught.
Yeah, and I think, in picking back off of that, I am a big fan of having, a 5-year plan, but really with the focus on the next 18 months, right? So kind of like orientate yourself. I always say like the best road trips are like we're gonna try to drive to New York. We don't
Yeah.
need to be there until for a week and a half. And we just got to get to New York by then, right? And in between here and there, we're going to, figure out what route we want to do, might do some little sidetracking, but it's keeping us orientated of the direction we're going and,
Mhm.
keeping us on a timeline. But there is wiggle room on if we, go, the northern route or the southern route, or if we do a little side trip over to see, some, the world's biggest ball of yarn or whatever it is, right? Like those are the types of things that you can have a strategic plan and know you're trying to get somewhere, and that's help keeping everyone kind of focused. Because otherwise, sometimes things just have a tendency to be like, it's 5 years later and we really didn't make any progress on anything, right? Or every year, 18 months, you're changing complete direction or something. I see that a little more with younger, kind of newer nonprofits. But you do kind of want to have some kind of idea of where you want to be, but it shouldn't be so rigid that if there's any deviation from the plan, you're not going to make it there. There's a big difference between giving yourself 10 days to get to New York and giving yourself 4 days to get to New York. If you're giving yourself 4 days, if you hit traffic, there's no seeing the big ball of yarn. You're just go, go, go every day, right? So you want to give yourself, some wiggle room within that plan and have those goals be a little more general and with a timeline that is very feasible, even whether it's the best or the worst of circumstances. And, we have to always assume that sometime in the next 5 years, you're going to hit a major hiccup, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's, a change in administration that disrupts funding cycles. Like we see these things happen, generally within a 5 year period. There's going to be a natural disaster or some kind of thing that will cause disruption to a plan that requires that every target get hit like clockwork, right? So, some general,
Broad strokes.
broad strokes for the 5 years and then much more specific goals. I'm a big fan of strategic plans having 3 to 5 goals. That's all you
That's
need.
it.
Within that, strategies, but 3 to 5 goals. And those goals, 3 of them should be, a little more shorter term, and then maybe one more midterm and one more longer term. Or general enough, you want them to be SMART goals and objectives, right? But you don't want them to be like so specific that, again, you have to hit all these benchmarks along the way. Anything to add in about that?
No, I don't think so. Can you move to the next slide?
Yeah, for sure. All right. So a couple more. What are some
Yeah.
smart ways to build an operating reserve in today's funding climate?
Yeah, so I wanted to share some examples from other orgs, and these are all like different scales. But YBCA really doubled down on their renting event spaces and curating public art installations for city agencies, and using like a specific portion of that earned income to explicitly earmark it for a reserve fund annually. So there's ways to kind of like set specific plans and like add to it incrementally over time. Um, a contemporary theater in Seattle did a board reserve challenge where the board members pledged matching funds for every dollar contributed by individual donors. One thing that's really important is the Laundromat Project. When they started working on their capital campaign, they also included operating reserves within their campaign goal, and they framed it as building an ecosystem of sustainability and not just the building itself. So I think that's really important to think about of like, if you're already running a campaign, don't make it two separate campaigns. Like just go in for your operating reserves and go in for that capital campaign at the same time, right? And then Axis Dance Company, which is here in Oakland, any of their annual surplus, even if it was just like $1,000, they put it into their reserve. And they also really prioritize grant applications that would fund general operating support. That landscape is a little bit different now. We're seeing a little bit less and less general operating support, but they did this intentional building at the beginning of building out their organization, and just did like a slow build for their reserves. And so I think it's like really difficult to kind of think about, okay, we're kind of like going month to month and we're having issues with our cash flow. And definitely stabilizing your cash flow is super, super important. But once the organization is stable, but it should be, a priority to build your reserve incrementally. So even thinking about just like a month of your core expenses, 2 months of your core expenses, and like building it little by little. It does seem overwhelming, but that's the only way that we're going to kind of like chip at having some, cushions for when organizations do kind of face these really challenging times, which many here in the Bay Area are facing. Melody, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, and this is another one. I mean, first I want to just say like you should have 3 to 6 months in reserves. So whatever your annual budget is, half of that is 6 months, and then half of that is 3 months, right? So that's how much should just be in the bank, right? That feels like maybe sometimes it's a pipe dream, right? But that is especially when funding is tight. If you don't have that cushion, then that is when you get into situations where you do have to just give people pink slips that, they only have 2 more weeks on the payroll and then they're gone because you can't sustain them because a grant didn't come through, and that's not something that any org wants to do. So, I think part of it is looking at, you know, sometimes building your reserves. You can get to that 3 to 6 months a lot faster if your expenses go down. Then the 3 to 6 months is a smaller amount, right? So it's a balancing act of increasing revenues while perhaps looking at expenditures and what expenditures are you able to reduce at the same time. Now, this is another thing, as somebody who mainly does grant consulting, grants aren't your answer here. Kim didn't mention a single grant in all of that. Grants very rarely ever can be used to build your reserves. A lot of times the only way it would be is if it's in that, 15% overhead or whatever that you get, the indirect. And that's if you're not giving it all to a fiscal sponsor, right? So this is the reason why Kim is mentioning things that are basically earned income, is because that is going to be, the easiest way to build your reserves. When somebody pays for a ticket, or when somebody, pays to rent some space, you do not have to come back and tell them how you spent that money. Individual donors, sometimes you do, or sometimes you tell them, donate $10 to help us buy this thing. And then you kind of have to buy that thing with their $10, right? Whereas if somebody's renting your space or buying a ticket, then once that money has come into you, into your organization, you get to choose how to spend it. And sometimes how you spend it is not spending it, but having it sit in the bank, right? So those are generally going to be your best bets for, building your reserves, is to have some kind of earned revenue. So, don't feel bad about charging a ticket or asking for, you can have a ticket fee, you can have a more expensive ticket fee currently, and then maybe you have some reserved for community, or you have a policy not to turn people away for lack of funds or something. But it's okay to charge if you have to charge in order to not, have the community completely lose access to the programming that you're offering.
Love it. Amazing. The questions are juicy. Um,
Yeah, I saw like one of the comments that these are some juicy questions. They're also heavy. I feel
yeah,
a lot to unpack here with some of these.
yeah. And I think this question about planning when things feel uncertain, that's for me when folks have spirals of uncertainty, I remind them that that's the point of the plan, is to make realistic goals, to kind of like give us that tracker of how far are we on our goals, how are we deviating from our goals, how on track are we, right? And as a way to kind of give us like a very realistic way to understand our progress with things, right? And so Um, you know, I think this is like an attitude that many people have just about like life in general and not just you know, running organizations and running arts organizations. I think especially under this kind of um this kind of gosh, it's after five. So what's this kind of government, right? That is kind of like moving to an autocracy, right? And that's kind of like what I remind people is like creating plans is also part of a resistance. Creating plans is also part of us making a map towards like creating stability and safety for us and for our communities. So while it might feel like very loaded and overwhelming to create plans, strategic plans, funding plans, earned income plans, all of these things can definitely feel overwhelming, but like creating the plan is going to be the thing that can help ground you throughout all of it. Did you have any thoughts, Melody?
Yeah, so same. Personally, my approach, I give myself a certain amount of time to be completely immobilized by the fear of living under this increasingly fascist regime, to cry it out, to give myself that space, and then to say my act of resistance is to stand up and do something. And what is that thing? Right? I'm not somebody who can sit back and not feel like I'm fighting somehow, right? So what is my fight? I'm getting a little older. I have adult children. I'm grandma age. Like I am not getting out and physically, able to lead the charge. But what I can do is help folks plan and help folks try to have plans that are actionable. And that's what we need right now. I have never liked to help folks create strategic plans that everybody gets together and creates this plan and then we throw it in a desk and don't look at it until the next time a funder asks us, what's your strategic plan? Never liked that from the start. In 2025, I'm really not wasting my time on that shit. I am only doing strategy work that is actionable. And that for me, when I do feel uncertain, well, I don't like the way this is going. Where do I want it to go? Right? Where do we need to redirect to? And then how? Right? So that is for me, you set the goal of this is what we want. We don't want where we're going. Nobody wants that. So let's cry it out and then get up and figure out where we want this work to go and what do we need to do to get it in that direction. And that to me, then I'm not feeling so uncertain because now I know, where I'm going and what I'm doing.
Mhm.
All right. Whew.
Ooh, I think that was it for the questions.
Yes. And that
Um,
was plenty. That was plenty. That was that was a lot. So Kim did put in the chat. We also have a little bit.ly link here. We also are going to be sending it out in the follow-up email with a link to these lovely slides as well and the recording for folks to be able to do their internal, kind of strategic plan assessment. So this is the first step that helps you figure out what you need to be doing in order to um
assess your readiness.
yeah, to move into the step of doing there we go. Okay, so here we are. Kim, you want to kind of talk us
Yeah.
through this?
So it's a nice little quiz. And so for each section, you're going to rate it from 1 to 5. So 1 being strongly disagree to 5 being strongly disagree. And this is breaking down into like several sections. So we're starting off with leadership and governance. And so the first statement being our board and leadership are aligned on the organization's mission and values. So you rate that from 1 to 5. The board is engaged, understands its governance role, and supports long-term planning. There's leadership stability, for example, no major transitions in executive leadership. And then key decision makers are available and committed to participate in the planning process.
So
And then we're
again,
going
nothing
to,
about money in this entire section.
yes,
It's not
yes,
just money.
nothing about money. Yeah. And then we're going to scroll down to organization, organizational clarity and health. So we have a clear mission, vision, and core values that guide our work. Our programs and services are aligned with our mission. We regularly collect and use data to understand our impact. Our financial position is stable enough to plan for their future. Staff are generally engaged, informed, and resourced to do their work. And we have clear organizational structures, roles, and processes. Then we go into external environment and stakeholder engagement. So we understand the current social, economic, and political trends affecting our work. We have strong relationships with the communities we serve. We regularly engage our partners, funders, and other stakeholders for input and collaboration. We are aware of similar organizations and how we are distinct or complementary. And then we go to strategic mindset and culture. There's an openness to change and innovation within our organization. We've made time to reflect on what is and isn't working. We are not currently in crisis mode and can focus on long-term thinking. We are curious and motivated to think strategically about our future. And this last section is on resources. So we have or can secure the time and staff capacity to participate in a planning process. We have or can secure funds or facilitation support to guide the process. So only two of those questions really talked about money.
Yeah.
So here you're gonna add up your scores, and then the interpretation, if you can scroll back up a little bit.
Oh, sorry, this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then so 80 to 100, you're highly ready. You're in a strong position to engage in strategic planning. You can begin preparing your process design and identifying who you want to facilitate. If you score between 60 and 79, you're moderately ready. There's some prep needed, and you can address specific areas of concern before starting that process. And then below 60 is you're not yet ready, and you want to focus on building leadership alignment, stabilizing your ops, engaging your stakeholders before initiating the strategic planning. And so this breaks down even further into each section. So if you could scroll down a little bit, there is specific guidance if you're low in some of the areas. So if your leadership and governance is low, you want to host alignment sessions with the board and leadership to reaffirm mission and core values, and then also clarify decision-making roles in the planning process, right? So that could even go into is your board meeting often enough to be able to engage with what's happening within the organization, right? So there's more kind of questions that nest under that. If your organizational clarity and health is low, update or create a theory of change or program logic model, conduct an internal audit of programs, finances, and HR systems. If your external and stakeholder engagement is low, conduct community listening sessions or stakeholder interviews, gather external data and trends relevant to your field or service area. If strategic culture is low, host reflective retreats or pause points to cultivate a forward-looking mindset, and then share examples of strategic shifts in peer organizations to build inspiration. And then if resources are low, budget for planning time and potential consulting or facilitation support, and then consider a phased or lighter weight planning process if needed, right? So maybe the first year kind of focuses on building up some of the areas that were low on your scoring. And then maybe the next 6 months focuses on collecting data, doing stakeholder engagement, really understanding if the program and the organizational culture is aligned with where your stakeholders and the folks that you serve are really in tuned with, and thinking about it in a phased way. Maybe you can only set aside 5,000 for it per year, and then just work within your means. So this is just kind of a general planning self-assessment that can even just get folks thinking about well, what exactly is our org missing before we can really dive into this process.
And a lot of,
Melody.
if you do, this is the time that grants actually are helpful. I've mentioned a couple times in this call when they're not, but a lot of times if you have a grant funder who's invested in your organization a significant amount, whatever significant means to you, right? Sometimes they will offer support specifically for strategic planning. And if they've interacted with you, and you have that rapport, but they also might see that you could use it, right? That you could use some strategic planning because, there are, maybe some things that you need to work on, right? And so, potentially they could help specifically with some resources around strategic planning. That's generally a funder who has supported your organization multiple times in a row and and they feel like they're invested in you, right? But it's really hard to get, you know, individual people to say, give us $10 for our, or $100 or whatever the amount is for strategic planning. But funders, they love this. And they might even, what some funders do is they will actually not give you the money for strategic planning, but pay for the consultant directly. They have consultants in their network who they would pay for that fee for them to come in and facilitate this process. So, something to consider where, that could be helpful.
Just wanted to open up if there's any questions about the document. I feel like it's pretty accessible. Oh, okay. Clear and accessible. Great.
All right. So we did, try to have some space built in to share here. I know we are close to time, but if folks wanted to, share anything, if anything that jumped out at them, any thoughts that they have about, where their org is at, or certain areas that um, might be of right away. I think sometimes you're going through the list, you're like, oh yeah, that one for sure. Right.
Thanks, y'all. I feel like this was, how therapists have consultation?
Yeah. Yeah.
I always say this, and maybe Melody and Kim, we should do this, but I think like it's more and more clear to me in this time, like we as consultants should have a space, a very similar space. I know we're not therapists, but we are triaging a
Yeah.
lot in organizations, and a lot of the advice you were sharing, some of it was like worded in a different way, or again, nothing was like surprising. It was just like the way in which you both articulated it from your orientations was extremely grounding as what happens when you're like mutual practitioners in similar communities with different like superpowers. And I trust you so deeply, Kim, with how you approach the work, and Melody, I'm getting to know you through this call. So I think that's a learning that I'm walking away with. I'm like, I woke up this morning, hella like just I felt like I was on Kim, you'll get this reference. Christina was like, Amy, you've been on like a tribal tour back home to Seattle for like the past 2 weeks. You've been like running. And that was like a whole integration for me to kind of like step out of this grind, like my reality, like while I love it, like it's a grind and our people are like struggling and hurting.
Yeah.
And I needed to take care of myself and I needed to take care of my family and my nibblings too. And so all that to say is it's more of a request, like how can we build a consultation like module or model for the consultants like us in the arts in who have what I would say it's like there's a lot of similar values here from like what you both shared and the advice that you gave me, that it was kind of a mirror, and it if anything it's not like I know everything either, but like your expertise and the way that it landed on me is it's just restorative. I don't know how else to describe it. It's restorative, it's affirming. It's also like extremely like calming to my nervous system. I'm like, I'm not just saying this on repeat. Or what is a different way to say it? I love how numerous times you were like, see, it's not just about the money. And everyone is making it about the money this time,
Exactly.
or their scarcity or their the way they're regulating themselves is
Yeah.
like, well, money makes us secure. I'm like, y'all, we're in a lightweight existential like culture crisis.
Yeah.
So like I don't know if I'm like spinning around. It's after 7, but I hope this is a invitation that y'all would consider, because I think I'm not the only one that has approached, like I've been on the other side where I'm holding space and people are like, can we have something like where we exchange notes or we workshop scenarios? So I just want to throw that out there. And the two questions that were asked today are exactly like the medicine I needed. So thank you. They dovetailed nicely.
Well, I do
Yeah.
have to say, are you local? Are you in Bay Area, San Francisco?
Yeah, I'm in the
So,
city.
we do
Yeah.
have one
Melody
space.
hosts a consultant thing like once a
We
month.
have a couple spaces.
Yeah, there's a
This
few.
is our office hours, which are open to everyone. We do them for free. It in Soma in San Francisco,
A
Mission
trellis.
Trellis. Okay, you know Trellis. For those
Yeah.
of you who are watching the recording, Mission near Sixth, and from every other
That's where you guys
Wednesday
are at.
from 3 to 5. We host for free office hours where anyone can come in, and it's like we're the little shelter in the storm. Put your burden down, come sit, tell us your sorrows or ask for advice or whatever it is. But that's, I mean, consultants come to this as well. Sometimes it's
So you said every what day?
every
Every
other
other
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
And so we'll have one next Wednesday from 3 to 5. I also host at Trellis the first Friday of the month, a Consultants for Good meetup. So Consultants for Good is a national organization I'm a member
Oh
of,
yeah.
but we host a free meetup on, well, I can give you the free code for the
First Fridays.
Friday of the month at Trellis, and you can come here and co-work. Kim, we're actually going to do something new starting now. We're going to have, this is the table for people who want to chat, and this is the
Oh, that's
people
great.
who actually want to work.
Yeah.
And then we have lunch together. And then we also at Trellis, they have a happy hour from 3 to 5. And we all, you can either keep working or come join the happy hour. But it's a great place to connect with folks who are consultants, who are, working with nonprofits and just generally trying to create good in the world. So I will definitely send you all the info, or Kim will, one of us will,
Yeah.
in the follow-up.
I'll send it to you. Melody also sets up activities. So sometimes there's activities on those things. I'll forward it to you.
Oh yeah, so you mean at the co-working day?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, during happy hour, I do a little creative. Last time was you cut a word out of an old vintage dictionary and then you glued it on the paper and it was like what you're manifesting, that word and you drew the imagery and
Fun.
stuff. And sometimes I just bring like one time I just brought gouache because a bunch of people had never used it before and I was like, do whatever, just here's gouache. Try it out.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think now it's coming back to me. Kim, remember we had a meeting and it was like to orient for my February event. And I think like I might have met you there, Melody. Like you might have
Ah,
been on your way out. But anyway, I am familiar with this space. It's so good to know that something like that's happening in Soma. I live in Outer Sunset, so it's
Yeah.
also nice to not just like work from your house
Yeah.
and be
yeah,
out in the world
I
where
also I have membership here, so whenever I'm here and you want to co-work, you just
yeah.
come hang out.
you
I'm
have
here like
membership.
2 times a week now, at
Oh,
least.
good. You have
Yeah.
membership there now.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah,
Oh,
the other
see,
cool thing, Amy, about Trellis is I don't know, I think the way I started is you can actually just get like 10-day passes that you can like use whatever. And like, you don't have to, it's not like all or nothing. You can just buy like a pack of 10 or something or a pack of 20 and it's, then you don't have to feel like you need to come here every day. And then I just started like I got the 10 pack and I came like, out of the next 15 days I came 10 of them. So I was like, okay, I think I should just get the
that's
membership.
cool.
But
Where do you live,
yeah.
Melody?
I'm in the Excelsior, so I hop on the 14 and I'm like boop boop door to door. It's pretty nice. I get
It's
just
good.
enough of a walk to the bus that it's like, you know,
Yeah,
it's nice. It's not it's not
it's
strenuous.
good to know. It's good to
Yeah.
know that you're also in the city. My partner grew up in Excelsior. Yeah, you know about the new spot in Japantown? Kim, you probably got invites or
Yeah,
something.
Melody is the grant writer for them. So I think you were there yesterday, right?
Yeah, I go there on Tuesdays now. Because I have
Oh,
some
that's
appointments on the
cool.
side of town. So I co-work out of Coho on Tuesday. Coho is the name of it. Yeah. So if
Yeah,
you ever want to go there, there's hours are a little shorter though. They're currently
yeah,
because they just kind of open their 10 to 5 Monday through Thursday. I don't know. They're gonna hopefully be extending those hours soon. But
totally. I did the trial run. I was invited to do it, and it was nice to have a couple meetings there. And it's an excuse to eat things in Japantown. So it's good to know
right, Super Mira
where
every
the
day
people
on
are at.
Tuesdays. That is my new thing.
This is good to know. I feel like I can't enter and I'm always orienting on a school year system because a lot of my clients are school year based. I just
Mhm.
feel like in this time, I have to fortify in
Yeah.
in ways like co-working and but also co-working, not just like having meetings elsewhere, but like co-working with like-minded
Yeah.
folks who are doing similar work. Because it just can feel um not just like isolating. Like this time, it's like I'm feeling extra weight and heaviness from what our people are facing and our
Yeah.
specific client and communities that we're holding.
I
Yeah.
mean, me and Melody have this conversation kind of often of how do we like not let the work just devolve into therapy sessions, but also like create boundaries for ourselves and also just like support each other. So,
Yeah.
that's also why I hang out with Melody.
Yeah, and
Thank
it's
you.
definitely needed, now more than ever, I feel like. But even in the best of times, it's helpful just to have, your peeps. Not always have that like client facing persona.
Yeah.
I'm not good at the client facing
Oh,
persona.
me neither.
You can barely tell if I'm on the phone with a client or my sister, I'm me, no matter what. But I do put on enough that sometimes it's nice to take that off.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, you
But
too. I know that we're at time. I'm sending hugs.
Yes, nice to see
well,
you.
yes, this was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for joining, Ayla. I hope you got lots of stuff unpacked.
Yeah.
And yeah, I hope to be
Oh, maybe next
real soon.
Tuesday I'll come to Coho instead of
Oh, that'd
Trellis.
be fun.
I
Yep, that would
know.
be a lot of fun. And I'm telling you,
I
that Super Mira,
The
I hate
12th, I might take
I
you up. Like, let's coordinate. Like, what time will you be there, Melody?
I get there usually I do 10 to 5. I say there that I'm there the full time they're open. I have
Okay.
an appointment right before, so I get there usually about 10 and then I stay till they kick me out. Sometimes a little past 5.
Yeah.
Yesterday they had to come over and say, "Melody, we're closing now." I'm like,
Well,
"Okay."
maybe Kim, if you're available, I'd love to like be with you both IRL so soon after this call,
Yeah.
and maybe we can always grab some eats.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna plan for Tuesday to just to go to
Oh
Coho
shoot,
instead
not
of
this
Trellis.
Tuesday. I have to go to my son's graduation for
Okay.
the
Well,
program.
I might
Not
still
this
go
Tuesday,
and
but
we
the
could still
following
meet there if you
But
want,
yeah.
Amy. An
Uh,
excuse to get ramen or something.
100%. Yeah, let's touch base and I miss you and it's good to see you both.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.